Saludos y bienvenidos a todos. Welcome to episode 36 of the PGP podcast. Hey, Josh, the Pro Principal of Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland ISD, Garland, USA, ready to rock and roll and learn. Another great guest. You know, I hear a lot of podcasts, tons of podcasts, and they'll say, but I really want this one. No, all of ours are A plus, baby. It's all A plus. Every single last one. Yeah, some people are fire, but you know what? Let me tell you, our guests, like all the other 35 episodes, are great. I want to thank you. Muchas gracias por estar aquí hoy. Les doy las gracias con mi corazón, con mi espíritu. Thank you very much. Hey, if you haven't noticed, this is a Hispanic-leaning podcast, all right? There's not a lot of us out there. Oh, let me look into the camera like Cafela does. There's not a lot of us out there. So por favor, ayúdenos, help us out. It don't take that long to click like and share for the algorithm because it's not, I can't, and again, you might be thinking, you know, it happens with the mentality. Oh, he just wants money. Look at me. Look at my 4 eyes. I get no money from this. Trust me, a lot of time is spent doing this. There is no money. I ain't Joe Rogan, all right? I don't make that money. But what we do make are memories and advice and sharpening of tools because I'm in the kid business. I'm not in the science business. I'm not in the math business or English business. I'm in the kid business. And the better that you are, the better that I am, the better that kid is. And we will let him or her reach the accomplishment that they are entitled to in this beautiful, glorious profession that we have, the profession that creates all the other professions, public education. So we need you to please like and share it. Go to our YouTube and follow it, and put the little bell just so that other people can know, just like our awesome guests and all the other 35 shows bring all of these, and the term in podcasting are nuggets of knowledge. So please let me know also, or let this lady over here in H-Town know that if you want to be a part of the show, hey, Josh, I like to be on the show. Hey, Maria, I like to be part of the show. Llámenos, díganos que quieres ser parte del programa. Si estamos juntos, nos podemos ayudar. So, hey, welcome to this awesome, great experience known as the PGP podcast. Hey, Dr. Moreno, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Josh. Thank you so much for asking. And guess what? Look, I am home.
You're at home. You're not at the Valley. You're not in Tegucigalpa. You're not in Tanzania. You're in H-Town. How are things in H-Town right now with that storm?
Oh, my goodness. H-Town is great. It's cold. Not that cold, but somewhat cold. But we're here. I'm great. I'm home. I'm excited. I'll be going to Tanzania in 26 days. But other than that, Josh, but I do want to just make sure we just pause for a second and just really think about those folks over in LA, because I was just scrolling through my social media, and man, things are really tough over there. I know I have a meeting. I'm talking to some folks over in the LA Unified School District on Tuesday. But man, I can't imagine what in the world, they're going through. So I just wanted to make sure we just pause and just prayer, however you guys, or everybody out there who believes in whatever God you talk to, but really just our hopes, our dreams, our prayers are out to everybody there in LA. Because I mean, those are kids, those are families, those are people.
And you know what, Mari? We've talked about this in past shows. When I say, hey, the people in Hawaii, from Maui, they haven't recovered.
Yeah.
You think they're recovered? What about the people that went through, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, the hurricanes recently? They haven't recovered. What about that chemical train that's overspilled in that city? That whole town was desolated? No, guys. That's why we need to make sure that we reach out. And that's when I did my Chinchilagua moment last week. We need to reach out, not only within our own little area, make that a solution, make that a commitment to yourself, that not only do you reach out to your local administrators, teachers, but to other people that are facing adversity. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, Mari. You beat me to the punch. I appreciate you. That's why birds of a feather flock together. And that's awesome. So thank you for being here. Thank you. And, we'll be seeing Mari sending us pictures of hyenas and giraffes and rhinoceroses in a couple of weeks that we could all experience that. But yeah, por favor, echen su oración, mándenle a Diosito, a bendecir a esos alumnos, a esos maestros, a esas familias. Let's do our prayers. It's Sunday. You have your beliefs. I have my belief in this podcast, and that is to praying to him, to making sure he sends his blessings to kids, to families, to all the learning community out there. And part of that is the Chinchilagua moment. Chinchilagua, man, superintendent is looking at me like Chinchilagua. We don't say that in New Jersey. What the heck are you talking about? Well, Glenn, Chinchilagua is a Mexican game where you line up against the wall, right? And then all your cousins. Yes, we have big families. And yes, we do big lineup with tios and tias and cousins and primos. And then we yell, Chinchilagua y arriba, boy. And then you run, boom, and you jump on top of somebody. And then you say it again. You jump and you jump. And you jump until it's all, everyone's laughing. It's so funny. Ha, 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 ha. And then that one kid breaks his nose. That one cousin of yours fractures his wrist. And then you hear, and then your abuelita comes out, your tia comes out, starts hitting everybody with a chancla because you hurt the little one. All right. You know what? It's a great thing being an educator, and this Chinchilagua moment is for us as administrators. Mari, you held this position for many years now that you're retired, but still, you don't forget this. We need to make sure that we have those crucial conversations with those team members, both positive and not positive, because a lot of us are starting jobs right now, administrators, assistant principals in brand new schools. Like literally, you're starting brand new. I'm hearing people getting hired for these positions, and you walk in and you start getting the layout of the land of whatever that chair is in that school. And then you start finding out that the pedagogy is not effective for kids. And so you, at that moment, you have two choices. That's one of the hard things. Are you going to have that crucial conversation with that individual that's been there for 14 years in the same classroom teaching the same thing? Are you going to have the crucial conversation with a brand new teacher that has no discipline control in the classroom? Are you going to do it, or are you going to shy away? You can't do that. And none of us, I'm telling you, even Superintendent coming up right now, talks about this in his book. You cannot shy away from having awkward conversations. Yeah. The more you delay having a corrective behavior or a corrective conversation, the more it's going to burn you sitting in that chair. Because in the end, you are creating administrative malpractice. Yeah. If you're not addressing the flaw that is the coach that's saying something inappropriate, the cheerleading coach that's saying something inappropriate, the English teacher that's always flunking people with 69s and 68s. You need to have those conversations. And when you walk in, and I'm sure, Mari, you face this, you walk into a new campus, and then you hear this from teachers. Well, I was always exemplary. Yeah. You're the very first person that I've never heard this before. Look at my past evaluations. And you know what, darn it? They're flying high, and you're like, well, I have no idea who was sitting before me, but that's not what I'm seeing, because you're killing them with dittos. Dittos don't create dendrites, as we know from his Tate, and all you're doing is creating chaos. So you need to have those crucial conversations with those team members that are letting not me down, not the teacher down, but kids down. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that, Dr. Moreno?
You know, that's amazing. And thank you for bringing that up, Josh, because guess what? We are in January and people are getting hired already for next year. That is an absolute, valid statement, because you're absolutely right. I know of a lot of people that are getting into that chair, and the first thing they want to do is make friends and have people like them. And it's not about liking, and it's not about making friends. I mean, you and I both know that the chair is the most loneliest job in the world. I never, ever had the opportunity to, sit down and chit chat, because it is a very lonely job. And now that I'm no longer a principal, I'm having to now socialize and make friends, because for 30 years, I didn't have that opportunity. So, if you are going into that position and you're getting that chair, congratulations. But with that chair there's a lot of responsibility, and the responsibility of every single child that walks through that door. And, teachers will say that. I mean, what you said, I mean, that's a fact. There's teachers there who've been teaching for years, 20, 30 years, who have been teaching the same subject, doing the same things, doing the same, sometimes even the same test. I remember when I was in the chair, there was a teacher who gave 100 multiple choice questions for every unit. Oh my God. And again, he did this for so many years that I had to sit down with him and said, how is this really pushing a child's thinking, right? When you have 100 multiple choice questions. And he says, I've been doing this forever. And I said, I know, we got to change the times, right? We got to look at how you're really, and using data if you have to, because sometimes teachers need to kind of see, the reason why you're saying this. So, thank you so much, Josh, for saying that, because you're absolutely right. And I want people out there to really understand that being a principal has its grace, has its glories, but man, there's a lot of work and a lot of awkward conversations. Everything from redirecting a teacher to even termination. And those are some hard conversations. I have to cut the budget, because I can't afford you anymore or whatever. And those are tough. So, I'm glad you mentioned that. And I wish everybody out there who's getting that chair position, good luck to you guys. But seriously, listen to some of our podcasts because we really provide some good advice. And I hope you get some from us today too.
And so, as I tell everybody, and I say this in faculty meetings, you might like some of the stuff I do, you might not like some of the stuff that I do, but one thing I'll let everybody know: if you try to make everyone happy, you make nobody happy. So remember that. And again, I hear a lot of podcasts right now before we bring on our awesome guest. I bring a lot of, and you know what? This is a fact. And I know people have a vision for what their reality is, but no, there is no such thing as a chair not alone. This is a lonely chair. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, reach out to people. Oh, reach out to this. Oh, in the end, all your decisions of the cheerleading mom or the area superintendent all fall on you.
Yeah.
And you cannot be spreading what you are getting paid to do, that burden on somebody else. I don't feel that that's right. I don't feel it. And that's my opinion about that. And you will know once you get your chair. Because I'm sure that Superintendent Robbins doesn't go around telling his wife, well, I had this problem and I had this problem. You don't want to unload toxicity on the people that you love. You don't. You really don't. Even though people say, dime, platícame, dime.
Yeah.
I'll carry the cross. You shouldn't be putting up with this. And part of that, just to close off before we bring in our awesome guest, remember a flashback episode 24 talking about first-year teachers. Remember, we had a first-year teacher on the show. We had a first-year assistant principal on the show. We had a first-year instructional aide on the show. We had first-year members and what their vision of the job is. Reach out, episode 24 on our YouTube at Josh Tovar. Like it, follow it, put the little bell. But without further ado, the man, I know, look, a lot of people don't know Cafele. A lot of people don't know Jimmy Casas. Manny Scott, people don't know. That's okay. I know this cat, and this guy is always on fire because you know what? He motivates me to do kooky things, but you know what? It comes with one thing. El amor del corazón. It comes with loving his kids and making sure that his learning community is on fire. Welcome to the show. Muy bienvenido, joven Glenn Robbins, Superintendent in New Jersey. Thank you for being on the PGP podcast.
You know what? I need you to come to the next board meeting. That'll be my intro into the room right there. That'd be awesome.
Let's go. All right, my man. I'll hand you over to Dr. Moreno. Go.
Awesome. I think that'll be a good thing if he walked in and introduced you that way. That would have been amazing. Well, I'm so happy to have you on our show, Mr. Robbins. And before we get started, I want everybody to know who you are. So why don't you start off by telling the audience a little bit about your background. Just summarize some of the different roles that you served while in education. And which one was your favorite? I know that's going to be a hard part, but which one's your favorite and why is it your favorite?
All right. So thank you both for having me here. It is just an awesome opportunity to showcase some great things that are going on in my town, my district, Brigantine, New Jersey. So who am I? I'm a dad of two amazing young kids. I'm a husband of an amazing wife who is my everything that makes me go forward. So without my wife, I have nothing. And I have been the superintendent for the last 5 years of Brigantine, New Jersey, which is right next to Atlantic City, New Jersey. Before that, I was a superintendent elsewhere. So I have 9 years superintendency. I've been a principal. I've been an assistant principal. I've been a varsity coach and been a teacher. And and for 20 plus years before that, I was a water well driller. So a roughneck on the back of the rigs, doing some hardcore manual labor for a family job, family business that I decided not to partake into and sought out the education role. But along the way, I've been blessed to work with some pretty amazing staff, especially the ones I'm working with now on the school board. Recently, I was the runner-up for National Superintendent for NASS. I was your #1 Superintendent of the Year for AI, which is kind of cool because back in 2016, I was the National Digital Principal of the Year. So I take pride in that. Here I am, a couple of national accolades at multiple seats in multiple districts. It's not easy to do. But when you're surrounded with great staff and great school board members who understand what you're trying to do, it makes the job a lot easier. And my favorite is probably the one I'm in right now because I do a dual role. I do principal and I do also superintendency. And I love every minute of it.
Awesome. Awesome. You said 9 years as a superintendent.
Yes. Yep.
Wow. That's awesome. Awesome. Josh?
And like a big shout out to you, my friend, because I scroll up, I'm catching up to a bunch of my podcasts that I'm behind, and I heard you with Sean Gaylord. Saludos on my rock star Sergeant Pepper author. And the way that you said that comment about your wife, kudos, bro. I loved it. I want to leave everyone on a cliffhanger. Go listen to Sean Gaylord's podcast. That man loves his wife. I'm telling you, that guy, and the way came out, como te nació, like it came out of you. Great job, brother. You were speaking about, I love it. Thank you for sharing that. So let's peel the onion a little bit back, okay?
Go ahead.
What motivated you, my friend, to become an educator? What told you I want to make sure I use the red pen?
It's funny. I never used a red pen. I was just that guy that was anti-red pen. Maybe I had it too much as a kid.
Me too.
But with that being said, no, I was very big into soccer and or football, depending on where you are in the parts of the world. But when I started working in high school, I was running working camps with the high school coach. And then I started doing volunteering for a youth program as well. And it was something that was like, maybe there's something here. My parents did push for me to move forward with that instead of taking over the family business, which I'm thankful for that. But yeah, just something that was very intriguing to me. And I saw a bunch of educators. I had some amazing teachers when I was in high school that really inspired me. And I said, maybe this could be a career.
Was there an instant that you remember that ignited you?
I don't know if it was an instinct. I think it was more about long-term thinking. I was thinking about the fact that, all right, at that time when I was playing soccer, there was no real professional league in the United States. So, every kid in high school thinks they're going to go into college and pro, right? No matter who you are and what you are. And I started thinking long-term. I'm like, all right, there's some stability in this job. It's a good pay. You get that fun doing the great things and teaching the future youth of this world. And I get benefits with this. So, and at that time, I was like, all right, I'll also work and I'll have the summertime off. But that only lasted for a couple of years because I taught for roughly about 4.5 years. And I was always enamored and intrigued by how do I help more? How do I serve more? And that was through administration, having some administrators I also looked up to along the way in my high school career.
Appreciate it. Thank you for sharing. Dr. Moreno?
And then that's when you went down from all summer off to maybe 2 weeks.
What's that? I don't even get that. No. Always on. My brain never shuts off. That's why I thank my wife because she knows that.
Exactly, exactly. But yeah, you're right. Being an administrator, yeah, you don't get any time off. So yeah, that's the other thing that we need to talk about when you get that chair. So you mentioned it just you had a little sliver there when you were talking about your high school experience. So let's talk a little bit about that. Tell the audience how you were as a student, whether in high school or maybe in college. And I think it's important for the audience to understand how are we? Sometimes it's what we experience in high school or in college that really kind of navigated and had us maybe reflect a little bit when we were our first days or first months of
Mm.
teaching, right? So we kind of look back and say, well, I was like this kid before. So that's why I need to make sure that I tend to these students who were like me. Because I know I lived in the principal's office. That was half the time I was always there. I was always in trouble. And I think that's why I became a principal because I knew the job very well. I was always there. So why don't we tell the audience how you were as a student, either in high school or college?
Yeah, so I'll do a little bit of both. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm the second one in my family by 1 year to go to college. The mantra of my family was always, "You want to wreck a good man, send him to college." So for me, I'll be perfectly honest. I got in trouble one time, and that's all it took. And I was never in trouble again because back then you were fearful of your parents, and I was not gonna mess around with that backhand at all. But with that being said, in high school, I've met some incredibly compassionate individuals who really inspired me. You know, the ones that were really into the history teachers, and that's inspired me to be part of the history because I was just also enamored with that. But they were also, coaching sports. And I said, yeah, I love sports and I'd love to coach that as well. But they were good, decent human beings. I was not a great student by any circumstance. My parents would always say, do the best you can do. Well, the best that a high school kid could do was, not the best of grades. And I'll never forget that because of the fact that I had scholarships all across the country for soccer. My senior year, we finished, I was first team All East Coast, honorable mention All American. We were like 16th in the country. So I had it, you name it, I had it. And my grades were never the best, and nor were my SATs. And then I'm losing my scholarship 2 weeks before I was supposed to go to college because of the sliding scale in
Mm.
the SATs and the grade point average. My parents never knew anything about that, nor did I, because it was all new to us. We were not
Yeah.
a higher education family. So I had to go to college in a school that I was not exactly the most mentally happy person that I was at, and worked my what off for about a year, and then went to a different college that offered me pretty much a full ride the year before and offered me nothing. I get there, and I already played semi-pro ball in high school, and I just remember talking to the goalie. He rolls up one time in a truck, and he has this big box truck, and I'm like, "Hey, you're moving." Now, mind you, I'm an 18-year-old kid, and he goes, "No, this is my third job," and I was just like, "Oh, okay." So it woke me up. So when I went to this other university, I had to sign off on I was going to have to pay loans, because it was just such a cost factor. And when I went back out for the soccer team, I said, you know what? I need to focus on academics. I can't be doing the sports anymore because I need to pay the bills eventually because I'm going to pay this off. And I need a stable job that's going to be able to put benefits and help me out through the rest of my life. So from there, I started getting my first A's. And I'll never forget how hard I worked to get those A's in college. But I was extremely excited about for the fact that I actually was doing something at the more little bit of intentionality. I had my wake up call, and it was also, all right, it's time to move on. Your time to grow up with your life, and you need to start working harder than before.
Hmm. Hmm. And did that translate into like your first time in a classroom? Like, how did that support
Oh
you
yeah.
and those little knuckleheads in the classroom when you when you're a first
Well, you
year?
know what? Yeah, my first year, I thought the guidance department. I thought I angered somebody in the guidance department who put all the scheduling together. I was like, who did I offend? Like, who put all these kids in one room together? Like, uh, with that being said, I relished at it because these were all kids who came from worse background to me, but blue collar and or white collar, whatever it may be. But I did not have I didn't have a silver spoon growing up. And when I got to see the compassionate teachers that I had, the compassionate coaches that I had, and then understanding that, these kids might not be ideal students, and how do I help them change? I use it to my advantage. Like, hey, here's my past experiences. When I was in high school, I lost 4 friends to drug overdoses.
Wow.
So talking to the kids about that, who have families who are dealing with obviously narcotics and having problems and so forth, or alcoholism and so forth. So I was able to relate to a lot of kids based on the various backgrounds that I had, and I was thankful for those classes. And after that, I kept asking for those classes because we really got along. And I'll never forget, I'd have INRS meetings, and they say, "All right, this kid is just awful, fill out the form," and I'm like, "Kid's a rock star for me. Like, I don't know what's going on here." So I had a relationship with them that other teachers could not. So I really did use it to my advantage.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Relationship. We keep on hearing that over and over and over again. And I'm so glad that you mention it yet again.
It's so important. Hey, educator out there, just because a kid doesn't behave in 7 out of the 8 periods, but he or she behaves with you, don't listen to the noise from other educators.
Hmm.
Don't blackball that kid because you hear it, or
Hmm.
just because one team member of yours totally despises that kid and makes it obvious. You know what Rita Pearson said, right? You're not going to like them all, but you can't come across like you don't like them.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so,
Don't
hey,
be,
man,
don't be reading their discipline files. Don't be sitting in the lunchrooms asking questions to the teachers the kid that had them last year. Give every
right,
kid a fresh slate, just like every staff member. Give them a
right.
fresh slate. There's some, "Oh, you got to work with this teacher? Oh my goodness. Oh, good luck." And you're becoming great friends with them. Don't,
Eggs,
you treat everybody based on how you receive them, and that's a true testament of your character right there.
bingo. I love that. Before we go into details of one of your 2 books, my friend, I want please show the very first one out there to the audience. Show your very first book, and right there, this is an awesome read. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this right here, let me ask you, how did you find time, sir? And if I heard you right on Sean Gaylord, not only are you the soup, but you're also the main principal of your current district?
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
Lord. So, my friend, a lot of educators want to write books, and that's why we always ask this question: how, sir, as a head principal, head superintendent, did you find time to write 2 books, sir?
I think about past historical leaders. Think about Winston Churchill, right? How many books did Churchill put out? How many paintings did Churchill put out? How many writings did he do? You find time. I'm a firm believer in what Robert Greene would always say: there's a live time and dead time. So, are you truly using the time that's given to you? Instead of picking up your phone and looking at social media for a couple minutes, could you write a couple sentences? And or could you read a couple sentences out of a book? I think it's all about priority. Now, look, I'll be perfectly honest. I rarely sleep. I have a great routine that I am very comfortable and healthy with, but I am up for quite some time. My brain never shuts off. And writing is a great way to reflect. Writing is a great way of being therapeutic, and getting your words out there. And I love to read too. So I'm up at different hours of the night. If there's during the day, if I get a lunch break, if that ever happened, I'll read a couple paragraphs, whatever it may be. I love to do that just because that's my time. I love to watch TV too with my family. I'm a big Eagles fan and Philadelphia fan. I love watching being with my 4-year-old who just turned 5, and my 12-year-old son, trying to take him to sporting events. So I do all those events with my family. But at the same time, how am I nourishing me? How am I getting better to be a better leader? You talked about earlier, the missing out on things. Uh, I have people have the FOMO, right? I have the JOMO, the joy of missing out on things. I have the time to myself to read, and I'm comfortable in a room that's quiet. I'm comfortable knowing that I might be missing a staff event. I'm okay with that because if I can do anything, it's to continue to learn to get better and just type or read, whatever it may be, whatever, go for a walk, meditate. You make your time. And a lot of time, there's a lot of excuses why you don't have the time.
I love it. Thank you. You're so true. So, hey, out there, put down the X and start writing. That's simple. That's simple, right? Put down the
Yeah.
X, put down the IG, put down the LinkedIn. Let's go. Put your thoughts on paper and inspire somebody else. Dr. Moreno.
And the Netflix, because I'm awful on Netflix. Oh my goodness. Um, good advice. Thank you, Glenn. Before, let me see. So this is going to be a two-part question, Glenn. The first, tell the audience about the Stoics and their philosophy on life. And second, how did you tie that to school leadership?
Great question. So, like Josh mentioned, I had an idea in the back of my head for quite some time
Okay.
because of the fact I was a history person. And my grandfather used to say, it's not the problem you have, it's how you handle it. And I'd always curious, like, where did he come up with this? Now, he's a World War II vet who passed on during my high school career. But eventually, I was like, part of my passion in college is like, try to figure out where did he ever hear this from? And sure enough, it comes from the Stoics. It talks about, Epictetus, when the slave owner breaks his leg and says, ha ha ha. And he goes, oh, now I just have a limp. It's not a big deal. It's how you handle the situation. And think about that as leaders. So Marcus Aurelius buried 7 kids. He had to have incense smelling around his empire because of the fact that the plague that was going on. He was backstabbed, not literally, but he was backstabbed by a good friend, a general who was trying to throw a coup on him. The majority, he was not a healthy, strong person to begin with. He was frail, health-wise. He learned to team up with his co-brother to be co-emperors, which most people don't realize. And he did all of this being the emperor of the Roman Empire. And then you have Cato, and you have Cicero, and you have Zeno, and you have all these other people throughout the world that their quotes still really hit home when you read them. If you really zone out for a minute in a quiet area and you read some of the quotes, it's like, wow, like they're pretty spot on. Like I love the one for Epictetus because Josh, you're talking about people writing books. So here's the thing I say all the time when people are reading books, like don't just say you've read books. Show that through them you've learned to think better, be more disseminating to reflect the person. Books are the training weights of the mind. A lot of people say, oh, I read a book, but they never show something from that book. That's great and all, but did you change your action? Did you change your reflection? Did you change your character? Or if anybody can refute me, show me that I'm making a mistake and looking at things, and I'll gladly change. Putting your ego aside. A lot of times, let's be honest, there are a lot of leaders that we know who are too egotistical for all the wrong reasons. And that is the worst thing you can do as a leader. Yes, Josh, can you believe that? Yes, it really is. And one of my favorites, buddy, besides the waves crashing over the rock and do not move as the waves crash over you, and think of society as they're crashing over you, and we had COVID lockdown, and we had all these other things going on. But think about this one. This one really hits home. This one, Danny and I talked about a lot, my co-author. Says, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself the people I deal with today were meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surely. That is because they cannot tell good from evil. And then it goes deeper and deeper into that. But you deal with all these various situations that were written several thousand years ago. And how can that as an educator? So when you're getting ripped on by a parent on an email or the first thing in the morning as a principal at the door, are you like the rock taking the waves and staying calm, cool, and collective? Or are you showing your anger? And as great as you think that looks, you're just punching the air. It's all you're basically doing.
Yeah.
And everybody around you is going, wow, this person's not as strong as I thought they were because they lost their hothead. You might think you're really awesome at that couple minutes fighting back. You're not. You're just doing something much worse. Goes back to my grandfather's quote, not the problem you have, it's how you handle it. You fly off the handle in front of somebody, you never know who's watching. And especially those kids, they are looking for that. So I thought about it from the principalship and I thought about it from the superintendency. And that's why I asked Danny to join in with me to write this book, is because I know, as you mentioned, there are so many educators, veterans and or newbies, and more newbies than ever before, who have not had the best mentors, who have not had the best training experiences. Let's be perfectly honest. There are some people jumping in from assistant principal to a superintendency, or an athletic director to a principal or whatever it may be, they're missing some gaps, in those areas that they could use, and or they could be in the honky tonk, beautiful little area school where they never had to deal with multiple threats, destruction, drugs, alcohol, knives, guns, gangs, whatever it may be, angry parents, whatever mobs may be after them. There are some areas of this country that no matter how great you are, the agenda that is against you will never be able to be defeated by you. So how do you keep calm, cool, and collective knowing that? How do you know that you're going to rise up to hopefully be better? And it's, once again, it goes back to the true reflection of who you are. And that's
Yeah.
why I love the Stoics, because like I said, all those things about Marcus Aurelius that happened to him as an emperor, I think you can handle it if you get a bad email or two. I think
Yeah.
you can handle it if you get yelled at by somebody in a board meeting. I think you can handle it, but some people chest up, ego
Yep.
out, and let's rip, or I'm going to fire them. And then they just put themselves in a very bad lawsuit because they just did something they should never do and let the heat of the moment use an executive moment to fire somebody or do something against them that eventually hurts them and the district in the long run. So, every decision you make, it echoes and ripples, and you realize it sometimes after it's too late. So that's what I'm saying. Stay calm in the chaos, no matter what comes at you. Breathe, take it in, and you'll wake up again tomorrow morning to start all over again.
Yeah.
But how are you going to lead? How are you going to stay that person that you wish somebody else was there that you had when you were coming through the field?
Yeah.
How do you wish to be that leader that you wish you could be or had, all those times? So I could go down that rabbit hole for a while. But with
Oh,
Stoicism,
Glenn,
it's just
I'm
not
just
just being angry, but just centering yourself.
no, absolutely. I'm just kind of thinking and reminiscing. I remember I mean, here I am, school principal, and I would get up and down. I had a parent who just in my face and literally like pointing with their finger, like on my practically touching my nose. And one of my assistant principals looked at me and said, "Girl, I would have done something. I would have told." I said, "For what? What is that going to do?" As a matter of fact, you just talk in a lower tone and a lower voice. And at the end of the day, people are watching, and you're absolutely right when you say that. When people that you have to be calm and collected, even in those situations. But people just want to react. It's a reactive type of environment now that we are showing our students, and we have to be able to, again, calm the room, and that's exactly what principals and superintendents need to showcase and share with others. So
I think this would be I love this because the other book that I love to read once per year is the Four Agreements. These two, hey, new administrator or future administrator, this book with the Four Agreements, perfect. I can tell you it's a great combo to allow you to stay focused and be true to yourself as an individual, because in the end, we're all here for one thing, is to help out kids.
Yeah.
But you know what, before we get into the next thing, Glenn, let's send some flowers to your co-author. Let us know a little bit about him, because I looked at I thought it was just you, and then I looked him up. I followed him on X. Tell us a little bit about Danny.
Yeah, so Danny Bauer is an awesome individual. He's lived all over the world, and it shows that his range of experiences. But he was a teacher, he was an administrator, and he's an incredible podcaster. So if you check him out, he's one of the top podcasters in the world for education. When you do the statistics, breaking it down, Danny's also an author of several books as well. But he's a great human being. And that, I'll be perfectly honest with you, when I had this idea in my head to write this book, I was looking for that person that almost exemplified Stoicism. Danny was always cool, calm, collected. He's just a very cool cat. He came here and we wrote the book, or started to write the book in a couple of days when he was here. And he's walking around in the room. He's got slippers on. My wife's like, "Who is this guy?" And I'm like, "It's Danny." He's a relaxed cat, but he is brilliant when it comes to coaching individuals, because this is something we talk about, right? You talk about that, the loneliness, Well, Danny's there to help coach individuals through his masterminds. That's what he is. He's a great coach. He's a great podcaster and great author, but he's also somebody you can reflect ideas off of. And that's why when we wrote this book, all the ideas in here, like there's practice sessions, these were intentionally written for people who are a younger administrator and or a veteran administrator has to rekindle some things in their head, but also case studies. We just simply changed the names and a couple maybe scenarios here and there, but we, one way or another, dealt with these situations. So when you talk to your administrative team, all right, how do we handle a situation like this? And then everybody talks about it in that. So it's a built-in book study. You don't need the extra stuff that comes with it. That's one too many things in your book bag that you bring home from a conference. It's all in here. But it's then, like you mentioned, Josh, having the deep, meaningful conversations with your administrator saying, well, why would you do it that way? How would you address this parent? How would you address this board member? How would you address this coach and or teacher that you may have to let go and or help get better and or whatever is going on in the scenarios to present? So getting back to Danny, awesome all-around guy. Check him out behind the Ruckus Makers. I highly recommend it. And if you're looking for a coach, an awesome coach, he's your guy.
Perfect. Thank you for sending some love, some flowers out to Danny out there. And it's time for a commercial break. Commercial break where we do a shameless plug. Please talk about your book one more time. Where can they get that book, Superintendent Glenn Robbins?
Hey, make it easy. Just go to Amazon. Go to The Calm and the Chaos, Ancient Stoic Wisdom for Successful School Leadership. Go to Amazon. And it's right there. It'll be there in no time.
As I've told you guys in the past, I'm a slow reader. I'm always the last one when they give articles to administrators at administrative PDs, and it's only principals, and they hand out those articles that are font 2. All the nerds finish first. Tovar is the last one who's still doing side notes and underlining. I still underline myself. I'm a slow reader. I don't get it. I got to talk to myself. I got to underline things. And I'm just saying, this is a quick read. It took me a day and a half. That means that all of you should be done with it in an hour. So it's a quick read. And part of shameless plug moment is grow your why. Check out Barbara Bray's book. Check this out. It's awesome. 23 awesome educators to include yours truly on chapter 23. Check out this book. It's awesome. Inspirational stories on how to connect with kids and move ahead in life. Check out both Superintendent Robbins' book and Barbara Bray's Grow Your Why. So let's get back to the show right now. I enjoyed your format. I like the way that you did it. It's chunked. Both books, and we'll get into the other book right now, are chunked. So right here in the very first one, and obviously the reader can or the viewer can see this. What he does is that he begins, everybody out there, with a quote. He starts off with a quote from one of the Stoics. All right. Yes, us history nerds love the Stoics. All right. If you're a history or philosopher or religion guy, we love them. All right. But it's great knowledge, great stuff. It really helps you out. Then what he does is that he puts a scenario, real world. He was not faking the funk. This was facts. Glenn, when you wrote some of these, I'm like, that's the smell. Oh, exactly.
No, I wrote some of those and go, oh man, PTSD is starting to creep back.
I'm sure you started shaking like I do. You started shaking.
But at the same time, I had to write it to get it out there to help these individuals get better. And to your point, why it's short, it was intentional to be short. Just like Meditations and just like Epictetus's book, it is called The Book in Hand in the Latin and Greek language. So with that being said, it's short and sweet because like you mentioned earlier, Josh and Marie, we are so busy. Mm-hmm. So a short, quick book on the end of the table can always go back as a reference. That's why. And with real situations that happened, and if they haven't happened to you yet, they're going to happen.
They're going to happen.
Facts. And then the last part of that chapter or section, he gives you specific reflection questions. Mm-hmm. So my question for you, Glenn, is this. How did you come up with format? Being a history major like you, my master's is in history. You know, I read a lot of nonsense stuff, all right? I've never seen this kind of format. Where did you come up with this format? Was that yours? Did you take it from another author? Because let me tell you, it's spot on.
Yeah, it's something Danny and I talked about with Ariel. Ariel is our editor. and our copy editor. She was fantastic. She helped with the layout. And then obviously the gentleman helped to do the layout of the book. So, but we wanted something that was, to your point, chunks here and there that people can go back to. It's not overwhelming. Like you said, Josh, there are some books you read and they're so small and font. That doesn't work when you got tired eyes sometimes, and or to go back to the reflection questions. That was something we really wanted to hit home because, like I said, it's a building case study. How do you work with your administrative team, or how do these these Stoics become your mentors? How do they help you grow? So something that we all teamed up on, but I give a lot of credit to Ariel on that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Moreno?
So, Glenn, we cannot leave today's podcast without talking about your soon-to-be released book called Won't Back Down.
Yeah, I won't back down. Yep, I won't back down. How educators can transform rejection into redirection.
All right. So what inspired you to write about these artists and the adversity that they faced? So talk a little teaser. Tell everybody out there what is to come and when is it going to come out so we can already start looking for it.
Yeah, so it'll be out at the end of February or beginning of March. We're in the layout phase now, Josh, so we're going to make sure it looks great for you, chunked and easy to read. But what it's about is every educator experiences rejection, just like anybody does in the world, right? You have an awesome idea that you think is brilliant. You take it to your administrator, you're turned down, or you're turned down in an interview, and or you're passed over for a promotion, and or anything in your career that has beaten you down and stole some of that fire out of your stomach. And I remember seeing an awesome blog post and thinking about these musicians. And I remember reading a story a long time ago about Jimi Hendrix and how he opened up for the Monkees. So I was like, you know what? I was one of those people. I was not in the best of environments where I was, and I needed to go someplace new. And when I did that, it went for the better. I was appreciated. I excelled. So how many people are stuck in those environments that they can't get out? But Jimi Hendrix's poster is on my wall. But here's the thing. It's the concert poster of the Monkees. Jimi Hendrix is at the very bottom, and he's the opener. So back in 1967, Jimi Hendrix is booed off the stage several times. One of the greatest guitar artists of all time. But compared to the Monkees, who are this pop kind of a band, boy band back in the day, imagine if he would have gave up. What would rock and roll be like today? So I also talk about Tom Petty, and that's why it's called I Won't Back Down. I love the song Tom Petty. How many times did I jam out to that car song driving, after something happened or I'm about to face some adversity, and I turn that thing all the way up like, I won't back down. You can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I'm not going to back down. And I think a lot of us have been there in that way. So I look at it from each chapter is a different musical artist. I may go from Petty, Hendrix, Wu-Tang, right? I throw them in there. Eazy-E. I throw in Johnny Cash. I put in Bob Dylan, Elvis Presley, the Supremes, Carole King, Taylor Swift, Andre Boccacelli, Toby Keith. So each one of these plays a different role in education. Toby Keith was an awesome story to write about because he was a roughneck oil driller. And he left and gave up everything to be a musical artist. And he was told it would never be successful. Or Elvis was told, go back to driving a truck, being a truck driver. Could you imagine if the king of rock and roll took that advice from the Grand Ole Opry? Or, the famous story of the Beatles, that there's no guitar bands coming around. And I think that's why Sean and I got so along so well with Josh. We were talking about that earlier, but there were so many different artists. Where would the music world be had they just took the rejection and not used the redirection? So I tried to share a lot of different stories throughout this book of numerous times that I've been rejected, numerous times that I've been put down, whatever it may be, and numerous times that I had an idea that I presented something and just wasn't taking forward the next step. And I know I'm not alone. I know I'm far from being alone. Who had to deal with all these different adversity struggles and then rising up. So that's why these artists inspired me. And then it was like, all right, how do I transform music and art together? It's almost like Ted Lasso, right? He said sports and art together. So how do we do education and art together? And make it something that can be of a sense of a hope, and show that, I've had not an easy path, and look at all the successes I've had.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm far from being that only person. So I'm really excited about that. I won't back down. How educators turn rejection to redirection. And Josh, you're one of my endorsers. So what did you think about the book, my friend? Do you want to share or anything that really captivated you?
You know what? Number one, I want to publicly. This is forever because this will be all over the www.
So you're gonna be published in it too, buddy, too. So
First of all, I am humbled. Muchas gracias that you actually reached out to me and you asked me to read that beautiful book. I am humbled that you thought about me, that you would do that, and I value it. And that was you. It was such a beautiful segue to my next question, was because I am a music guy. I'm a headbanger from the '80s without the hair, and forever hair bands will rock. That's it. They will forever be in my brain. But music brings me my joy. It recovers my sadness. It motivates me during my obstacles. And you hit this cat perfect right here, en medio de los dos ojos, right between the eyes. And it's something that I made a connection with because I've been blackballed. I was not allowed to interview for a principalship for 13 years. I had to move districts. I know you described that, Glenn. That happened to you. So when you were describing that, I walked those shoes and I'm like, it's a crap feeling. But you know what? You won't back down. I'm not going to let you see me cry. And I had a reflective moment from years ago when I would be seen as a pariah. And I'm still seen as a pariah in that district. The district that made me, I'm still seen as a pariah. And that's okay. No worry, no foul. That's fine. I've moved on in my career and I've shown what I can do. But your words allowed me to have an epiphany, and it allowed me to realize that, you know what? God has placed me in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
God has allowed me and has opened doors for me. And I think this is the kind of book that is required for everybody that's facing that adversity out there, Glenn. I think that was part of my question to you. There's a quiet undercurrent, as Jimmy Casas calls it, in our profession, that if you're not politically fighting right, if you're not kissing the right ring, if you are not singing off the right sheet of music, you will be blackballed. And not only if you're in a small community, like within a lot of little cities, your name will be tarnished because we know that education is a small field and people know each other and people will call each other. And so what are you doing to ensure that is not part of your psyche, that you're the stoic, as you said in your book, the first book, what control do I have? What can I do within my control? I cannot be killing myself over and over. There's a quote like that saying the worst damage is the one that you do before the actual damage.
Yep.
And so I love that. All this is pieced together. So myself being an old fart, being in year 32, I'm an old man. I've seen everything. I've been in wars, nuclear wars and everything. You allowed me to look back in my career, Glenn. You allowed me to take out the mirror like Cafela says and say, you know what? Everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a purpose. And you will get your door. You will get your chair when he knows that it's right for you. So I value that as an educator. And I really, when this book comes out, I'm going to push it like hell. It's Sunday. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say hell. But I'm going to push it hard because you know what? You and I know this, Glenn, and me having, I don't know, somehow I've been able to connect with so many educators across the United States that they say the same thing, that they say that they faced obstacles, that the higher ups, they didn't kiss the ring good enough. So they're not going to get that opportunity, or the board member doesn't like you because you sat down their cheerleading daughter when you were the cheerleading coach. And so to me, as someone that's faced that adversity, I value your words. I value your examples. And I feel truly that this is going to be a way for people to find purpose in self and ensure that whatever crap is around them will not stain them anymore mentally, because
I appreciate that, man.
they can't do anything about what people are saying about them.
Correct.
But the worst, like you said, the worst thing that we do is that we keep on killing ourselves with our negative thoughts.
Yeah.
So to me, thank you. Muchas gracias. Ese fue un gran favor para mí.
I appreciate that, my friend, because what you just mentioned was a lot of the similar endorsements came back to me. They would call me and say, "Did you write this book about me?" Because I feel like I was reading myself at several times. Because we talk about the Supremes. I'll give this chapter away. The Supremes they're from Motown, and they are young Black women. So imagine the adversity battles that they went through. And now think about, like you mentioned, there's not many Latinos, right? And we know so many other backgrounds, Josh, across the country, who amazing educators who were making such dramatic changes for the better for their students, who would never be able to fit or pass the agenda that was already preset for them in that town. And they ended up losing their job, moving on to something else, becoming consultants, whatever it may be. But it goes back to you, Josh. You control what you can control.
Yeah.
And imagine if, like I said, any of these artists gave in. And there's a lot of artists that did, but these are big ones. And if they just simply gave in, where would the world of music be? Music is the best time machine we have. That's the closest thing we have to it, right? Because we can tell, like you said, I know when you were headbanging in that one song in the car, you can recall what was going on in your life at that time back in the 80s, right? And then there's also, you start to understand the lyrics when you're sad. So it really, music is something that is transformational. It is perennial. It is something that continues to go with you. And so is rejection. Rejection along the way. And it doesn't have to be a bad rejection. It can be something that is saving you from something awful.
Yeah.
And taking you, like you said, the guy upstairs, just putting you in a trajectory to something better and or saving you from something you did not ever want. I look back, how many times do both of you look back and go, oh my God, thank God I didn't get that job, or thank God I didn't get that situation, or thank God, maybe I didn't weave in the traffic this way because I would have gotten an accident like that guy. There's a time, and I think I tied that into the other book, Amore Fate, accepting fate. But at the same time, you don't just sit there and take it. You get up, you move. If you're in a bad environment, move to something else. If you're being pushed down, reach out to other mentors. Ask them. That's what I love. People don't realize this, but if you look up Tom Petty's video for I Won't Back Down, YouTube it. The reason why his Full Moon Fever, and I'm giving away some of the book here, right? His Full Moon Fever album at the time, not CD, not cassette, album, right, was rejected and told it would never make any money. And he was already a star. So George Harrison goes out with them and one dinner night, plays some songs with them because let's rip, try to lift his buddy's morale up. The other executives see it and go, wow, that's a great idea. And he goes back and they take on to it. But when you watch that music video, George Harrison and Ringo Starr are playing in that music video with him because his friends that you're creating on this show as well, on your mission that you're doing here, guys. Leadership does not have to be lonely because there are so many great leaders out there, such as this show, who are putting everybody together that you can call and rely on and help out with. So, that's my ticket to this. I can't wait for this book to come out because it's a book that was a lot of PTSD, a lot of tears, a lot of thoughts, a lot of, anger, and a lot of happiness. And a lot of times I'm looking back going, thank you goodness this all happened for these reasons because look where I am. You took a rejection and it made you stronger.
Right. And we don't want to tell more about the new book coming out, and you mentioned a little bit of smidge. The artists that you selected, were they purposeful, or was it once you started doing the research, you just said, oh, this one falls within this category, how did you get these artists?
So that's a great question. So some are just like you. I grew up and I'd read the album covers and I dive into it. They really hit home to me as a kid and or my grandparents or my parents. And then some others were like, in the research, wow, I never knew this. Like Toby Keith, I was kind of drawn to. Andrea Bocelli really hit home to me because he's blind, one of the greatest opera singers of all time. I have a hearing deficit in both ears. So does my brother and now my daughter. So how do we go through that, perseverance of going through the looking at the negative eyes looking at you, or the stereotypical remarks, and or, it's like the thing I really struggled with, and Andre had to deal with this as well. People thought less of you, because that's like taking a kid with glasses and putting them in a special ed class just because they have glasses.
Right.
You denounce somebody, so they overcome the rejections, they overcome this adversity. So to me, it was a lot of jamming in the car growing up as a young kid with my parents, and or the albums I had in my room, or just on the radio.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. And before I hand it over there to Dr. Moreno, welcome Sheikah Houston, part of the Fantastic Four with Coach Sean Hurt, Tammy Taylor, Sheikah Houston, and running off Super Saturday with Principal Cafele, and closing off the Fantastic Four Sunday with a PGP podcast. And a educator out there, don't let them see you cry. If you're in the middle of being blackballed and they don't let you interview, don't. Keep doing right by kids, and he will take care of you. Dr. Moreno.
Yes. Well, Glenn, we're at the final question, sir. So we're super excited that we have made it almost or at an hour now. But, we can't not share what I think we were talking about in that loneliness, right? So what advice do you give to those who shy away from social media? Because that, I know a lot of people who rather not post or share their successes online, and don't know how to like develop a PLN. So I mean, we want them to be not the isolated person either, but to showcase their work and seek help and advice from others. So what advice do you give them?
Well, how bad do you want a future job? I'm not even a Jersey guy on this one, because you're not showcasing what you're showcasing and great things are going on in your district or in your classroom. Somebody else is, and you've heard us many times. Guys, we've been talking about using social media for I don't know how many years now. And some people are still reluctant. And this is the frustration I have as an educational leader. You're not helping the profession move forward. You're taking it backwards. Move it forward by showcasing the great things you do. If there was ever a time to showcase great things that are going on in education, it's now, because it is constantly denounced on why, education is not great, or why we need vouchers, or why we should go into the private sector, or whatever it may be. And I also look at it like this too. If you're going to look for a job, I've already Googled you. I'm trying to find what great things you're doing. When you're trying to move your career forward in another district as well, how are you able to show and exemplify those things? And as I mentioned earlier, I would not have found you guys if it wasn't for social media. I wouldn't have free professional development for I don't know how many years podcasts have been out, but I've been, just sitting, like Josh says, working out, whatever it may be, going for a walk, and I'm jamming, listening to podcasts from all these educators or all these leaders who are willing to share. And 9 out of 10 times, and there are some people out there, I'm going to be perfectly honest, who are pen and ink philosophers, and they've never really done anything in the school district, who will share you some snake oil. But then there are other people out there who truly work day in and day out for the right reasons for kids, and they will help walk you through each and everything. Hey, how did you deal with the board situation? How did you deal with this angry parent? How did you deal with the teacher that was having this situation? 9 out of 10 times, you reach out to these great people, they will help you. They'll have a conversation with you. Some of them are going to ask for money, and you just learned right there, see you later, I'll talk to somebody else. All right? Because if you're truly in the field of education for that reason, you're there to help out them to make the lives of kids better. We're in that profession. Without the kids, we don't have a job. I think a lot of people forget that sometimes. So showcase on social media. You're not bragging. You are simply showcasing the great things that are going on in your room. Because if not, somebody else is telling your story. And I know that's been saying for years and years and years.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your advice, Glenn. And Josh, right before you the Echale Ganas, if you can just remind everybody why we are on today at 4 o'clock, and is what's the time for next week?
It's 6 p.m. Central, Shika, and everybody. Just that we are torturing Superintendent Glenn Robbins because right now his Eagles are being victorious. And if I would have done the show later, regular time, it would have been at the fourth quarter. And a football guy does not want to do that at all. There was no juggling. Kind of like when it's Super Bowl Sunday, we're going to change the time just for obvious reasons. Because, hey, I'm sorry. Or I love orchestra. I love band. I love flags. I love everything. But I'm sorry, guys. Football is king.
Yeah.
And you know what? Families, bring the abuelitas, bring the tias with the guacamole, the carne asada, and everybody watch the football game as long as your team is in. And they're still, and even if they're not, they still break bread because it's a great
Yes.
bonding activity for everybody. So that's exactly why we came in a little bit early because it's obvious that it's the playoffs and we're killing Glenn Robbins. So we're not anymore, sir, because we're in the lightning round. Lightning round going on right now. Remember, it's not War and Peace. You're not writing a Sir Giovanni book. It's a nice, quick answers to this. And it's called the Échale Ganas questions. What does that mean? Ganas. Glenn Robbins. Ganas is a spiritual word for us Hispanics. There is no equate out there. There is no equate. If you're from Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras, Panama, Puerto Rico, Cuba, we all use this word because great grandmother told daughter, told child, uncle tells nephew. We all use this word. Échale ganas, mijo, because it comes from here. Te nace, that el espíritu. It gives you that spirit to push ahead. So you, my friend, I want you to inspire that educator that is a little bit beat down. That educator that's going to make this cheesy remark tomorrow. I wish it was longer. No, you do not say that. You say marvelous Monday. Let's go help some kids. So it's time for the Échale Ganas questions. Here we go. Number one, give advice to a new teacher.
Get a mentor.
Read a note, an email, a text from a teacher or student that inspired you.
One of them that I was mentioning in my new book coming out, I was told I'd never be a successful leader in any way.
There you go. Send some flowers to a current educator that inspires you.
Oh, great question. I think I'll go since it's FETC week. I'm presenting down there a couple times in Florida again. I'm gonna go with Jen Womble. This woman is unbelievable. You talk about someone who doesn't sleep, it's her. She is nonstop, a force to be reckoned with, putting together a massive conference.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Name one person, una persona that people should follow on social media.
Besides us, that's a three answer, right? No, I'll go with follow Mike Luberfeld. If you don't follow Mike Luberfeld, he's a superintendent up in Illinois. He is a dynamo leader that you should definitely be following. Mike Luberfeld.
Okay, love it. I'll get the spelling because this Hispanic doesn't know how to spell those complicated names sometimes. All right, here we go. Name one song. Una canción nomás. Nomás una, no dos, no tres. One song that inspires you, that emulates. What is your spirit? This is Glenn Robbins. What song?
Let's go with I Won't Back Down from Tom Petty.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh, really?
There we go. There we go.
What's your favorite quote?
Favorite quote is be like the rock when the waves move, when the waves crash over top of you and you don't move. You stand there firm.
What is your favorite cheat food or sweet?
Cheap food or sweet? I can be disciplined all day with the diet, and then I come home, a whole bag of Chips Ahoy's gets devoured.
Chips Ahoy. We got our first Chips Ahoy, ma'am. We
Chips
got our first
Ahoy. Yep.
What's your favorite TV show or book?
Oh, I have too many books, my friend.
TV show then.
TV show.
Well, one just ended. It was Yellowstone. I love Yellowstone.
I love it. And how can people reach out to you, my friend, can they learn about the Stoics and not backing down? How can they get a hold of this young man that is hardly ever on social media?
Yeah. So go to my social media, Glenn G. Robbins, 2 N's, 2 B's. Also, you can do glennrobbins.com.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Hey, Fantastic Four family. Dad McKeever Jeever, thank you for being here. Shika, thank you for spreading the word. Please check out the replay on YouTube. We had to come early again. It is football weekend, and we took away this man from his Eagles, which are winning 10-0. It's halftime. So you got the whole third and fourth quarter, my friend, to see a victory, because I still got to root for the NFC East to be victorious. But hey, the fun is not over. The show's not over, because next week we will have our teacher roundtable number 3 with teachers from Canada coming talking to us about how their system is. And after that, roundtable number 3 of Grow Your Why. More authors will be coming and talking about their chapters that they shared in there. And then we will be finishing with a third week ahead with Central Office. As you can see on our social media platforms, we are already booked going into March right now, getting all these awesome A+ guests, because we all need it. We all need a coach, just like this young man just said right now. We all need someone to support us, to be that little bird on our shoulder and say, come on, this is how. Así se hacen las cosas. This is how you do things, because we're not alone. We choose to be alone. We need to reach out and vent, and whatever it might be, we'll insert that variable. You can find that solution on a DM X, on a DM Facebook, whatever it is, because let me tell you, as this young man just said right now, when would Josh Toar, a very small school in Garland, Texas, be able to connect with a superintendent in New Jersey? Do you get me? Do you get me? This is the beautiful thing about this thing right here. What about a lady that goes to Tanzania in H-Town? It's not easy, but you know what? We choose to be alone because of whatever crazy thing you have in your brain. You're not alone. Reach out to us. And I could tell you, out of all the guests that I've invited here and Unlock the Middle, 97% were always positive and there to say, yes, I'll be there. 3% were interesting, but it doesn't matter. What I focus on is the 97%. And remember, this show is not about money. This show is not about statue. This show is not about narcissism. This show is about you getting the tools as this young man brought right here, because those tools will help your kids in Iowa. Those tools will help your kids in Nebraska. Those tools will help you in Wisconsin. And especially, if you hear anything that gets you angry, calladito se ve más bonito. It's a saying in Spanish. Just be quiet. You'll look nice. Nothing. Thank you, Melissa Jones-Chunu from Oklahoma, for being here. Thank you, Susan, new team member at MPA. Thank you for being here. Everybody, like it, share it, go to YouTube, see the rewind. Superintendent Glenn Robbins. Let's all say goodbye. Goodbye.